Oh my goodness. Bronchial. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna have a more, I guess, serious, it does have some serious elements to it, more of a discussion talky video. If you are any sort of in the beauty drama community, it has been Dramageddon number 3000 with Thomas Halbert, Jeffree Star, Mandy MUA, just throwing a bunch of people in the mix. And I was like, do I want to make a video? Do I not want to make a video? I'm kind of not, you know, not feeling it. I'm not a drama channel. I try to like stay away from the drama because like drama just brews negativity and I'm not about that life. But sort of recent things that have come about kind of made me want to give my 2 cents on it. As someone who suffers from mental illness, I did kind of want to touch on that whole side of it. This isn't going to be an attack video. I'm not coming after Mr. Halbert. I am just honestly giving my thoughts and opinions on sort of some of the stuff that has surfaced recently. I do have notes, so if I seem kind of like choppy or whatever, that's why. So starting off, we're gonna go into a little bit of like Psych 101, discussing borderline personality disorder. Then we're gonna kind of go into some of the things Thomas has like kind of a bit and how this whole thing correlates with him and just my opinion. I personally was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder around 18 or 19. For those of you who don't know, BPD or borderline personality disorder is sort of considered a kind of umbrella catch-all diagnosis when the psychologist cannot come up with a more conclusive one. This diagnosis is actually pretty common in younger cases because unstable mental whatever mixed with unstable young emotions and undeveloped brains makes for a very tricky diagnosis. I am a very, very different person now than I was when I was diagnosed, and since then I have been re-diagnosed because as I have grown older and I have matured and my brain has developed, kind of some of those borderline personality traits I've basically grown out of, which is not uncommon when people are diagnosed with this. It's also not a very like, you know, oftentimes when younger people are diagnosed with it, they grow out of it. And y'all are probably there like, well, why does this have anything to do with Thomas Halbert? You're just talking about borderline personality disorder in your experience. We're gonna get to that. But firstly, I first heard of Thomas Halbert. I don't know if you guys know or not, but I don't subscribe or ascribe to a lot of the larger beauty gurus. We're talking Nikki Tutorials, Mandy MUA, Laura Lee, Jaclyn Hill, Thomas Halbert, James Charles, Gabriel Zamora. I don't just subscribe to them because it's just unrealistic and I don't feel a personal connection. But the first time I had heard of Thomas Halbert was in a Here for the Tea video discussing the next generation of beauty influencers. And just from the information she was giving me, I honestly was not a huge fan. He didn't seem very genuine. He was very monotone. And he seemed like someone who was just very like immature and cared way too much about his like physical appearance. Because at the time of the video, which was a couple years ago, he must have been either 19 or 20. And he was discussing like getting Kybella, which is a procedure where they like stick ya and it dissolves the whatever here for this thing going on here. And I'm like, all right, as an older person, it's like, okay, but if you're like a 19 or 20-year-old and you're like, hey, I got Kybella, I'm like, I'm not sure that's a good role model, but that may just be me. But honestly, that was all here or there. People don't have to be your personal taste. We've discussed this before. Like who you like, don't like who you don't like. But my big problem is when you choose to bring mental illness in, either as a descriptor or as an excuse for your bad behavior, that's where I start to have a problem. As someone who suffers with a couple different mental disorders, whatever, yada, 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 it's like, I mean, it's okay for one thing to be like, hey guys, I'm just letting you know I have depression or I have whatever, but it's one thing to be like, well, I have depression and that's why I have crappy behavior. Mental illness, as horrible as it is not an excuse for bad behavior. And kind of going through and discussing and looking through like all the drama with Thomas Halbert, I am not diagnosing him. I do not have that power. I do not have the degree. I'm just kind of assessing what I see in his behavior as a product of borderline personality from my own experience. From what I've seen in the recent drama, Thomas Halbert is very much, one, a people pleaser, and two, a bridge burner, which are two very big hallmark attributes and coping mechanisms of BPD. Because people are oftentimes, they're like, oh, he's so two-faced, he goes back and forth, and I'm like, well, that's kind of really part of it, even aside from I feel being a very popular influencer. As a BPD, you literally want to please everyone, and that's not even like, oh, just this person over here or this person over here. Everyone you come into contact, you have this incessant need to please. You become consumed with making sure that everything you do is like rubber stamped by everybody. Because you care so much about what people think about you, and like I said, not just one or two people, you care about what everyone thinks about you. You are constantly like, oh my goodness, and am I making the okay impression? Am I okay with them? Am I okay with her, him, them, whatever? When I was diagnosed, my mom and I would literally, like, she would get so frustrated with me because my mom and I, we have a really good relationship now. Back then, things were a little bit more rocky. Partly because I would do things that she wouldn't approve of, but because of the BPD, I would be constantly seeking her approval on things that I knew she wouldn't approve of. So I would get upset because I'd be like, Mom, how do you like this super edgy gothic outfit? And Mom's like, yeah, not really. And then I would get upset because I'm like, but I need your approval. You need to like it. And Mom would get upset being like, you know I'm not gonna like it. And it would just be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it does make sense that Thomas would literally like bounce back and forth. Like when he's with Jeffrey, oh hey, I'm all about Jeffrey. When he's with Manny, hey, I'm all about Manny. When he's with Laura, hey, I'm all about Laura. Because literally in that moment, and to them, even if he's saying one thing to another person, like telling Manny, oh my goodness, Jeffrey's so blah. When he goes to Jeffrey and kind of doing the same thing with Manny, he still internally wants to please them because deep down their opinion of him actually really matters and does affect like his mental psyche. Their validation of what he's doing and who he is really does matter, even though he kind of throws off this like super nonchalant whatever. Deep down with the BPD, you're like, I need the recognition. I need the support. I need that rubber stamp. I need that validation from these people. The other thing is burning bridges. Now, I feel like this was very evident. I will leave some of the drama videos that I watched down below. There is no like specific one that kind of made me want to make this video, but I'll leave whatever down below. In the whole drama thing, you did see him bouncing back and forth between really like big, powerful influencers. And then when things kind of came to a head and there was inconsistencies within his story, what he was saying, what he was doing, instead of trying to really address anything or really give people closure or really actually like say, be like, hey, this is all that happened, let me clear the air and give you what really happened. He instead went straight to cutting himself off from anything, cutting himself off from Jeffrey, from Manny, being like, what's done is done, which is burning bridges. I used to do this a lot with my friendships where we would reach a point where I'm like, okay, this isn't working out, and instead of addressing the problem, I would just be like, I'm done. I'm done. And I would just cut off all ties, burn the bridge, and walk away because that was easier than dealing with the confrontation of actually addressing the problem. He's just been completely walking away, no conclusion, just totally shutting down, which, like I said, is a hallmark of BPD, and honestly is also a hallmark from other mental disorders. And part of it is with the whole young diagnose of BPD and everything like this, is there is a certain maturity level, at least with me and my diagnosis, where when you're that age, you're like, I don't have the maturity, I don't have the experience to literally see this through and like deal with things. So instead, I am going to burn those bridges and just walk away and pretend like it didn't happen, because that's just so much easier to handle. Another big part of BPD is manipulation. And now we know Thomas Halbert is very good at manipulating his fans, manipulating people he's working with, manipulating his audience, whether they're his fans or not. He's good at kind of like going forward and then doubling back and then crossing over and like mixing truths with not so much truths. And when I was at my worst with BPD, I was a horrendously manipulative person. Oh my goodness. I cannot tell you how many times now that I'm at where I'm at, I'll call my mom because I remember something I did and be like, "Hey Mom, I was a really horrible person to you back then, and I'm really sorry, I was an idiot. Can you forgive me?" And so the manipulation sort of just kind of comes hand in hand with all the other aspects of the disorder, where you can see all the things that he's doing just stacking up, stacking up, stacking up, stacking up, where it just comes to this like horrible boiling head, then anything actually getting concluded and resolved. Now, I know that was just basically a crap ton of information on BPD, and it's like, okay, so what is like all of this about? Is like having the mental disorder the problem? No, it's absolutely not. I have mental disorder. I'm sure there are a lot of other people who have mental disorder. What the problem is when you bring the mental disorder as what is Thomas Halbert doing, using it as a crutch and using it as a reasoning and an excuse for his behavior. You can have a mental disorder and have all these issues, but that doesn't give you an access card for you to just be like, I'm going to be a totally crap person, lie about everything, and then have everything come to a head and I be outed, and then me to just be like, well, I've got this, so it's okay. Me personally, I've got major depressive, oh my goodness, what is it? Major depression with psychotic features and severe anxiety disorder. That's what I've got. I deal with it every day, but there are some days where it kind of comes over and it's a bit more powerful. Do I film on those days? No, I don't, because that's my thing, and it's not a thing that I want to broadcast onto here, and I feel like Thomas Halbert kind of doesn't understand the need for separation between the two. If I'm feeling really depressed, I don't film, because that's not something that I need to have on my channel. That's me, that's mine, that's personal. And I also don't want to have you guys deal with that. If I were to film when I was depressed, it would not be fun. It would not be exciting. And as someone who has dealt with the whole mental disorder since I was probably around 15, it just really frustrates me when someone who is younger than me, I am 28 years old, I don't have time for all this drama. I don't have time for all of the chaos. And then you have someone Thomas Halbert's age who's 21, who's like kind of skirting on that adult but not really adult. I feel like he just hasn't completely developed yet, which is honestly my same problem with James Charles. I feel like when you have these like younger influencers who are so volatile and haven't had enough time to experience a lot of things and deal with things and mature, then it's just kind of, they throw them in the limelight and it's like, I'm in front of millions of people, but I really don't know how to act like a complete adult, so I'm just gonna make an utter fool of myself and then blame it on depression. It's just, it's just so frustrating. I mean, I am not like, I mean, if he has depression, we've heard about that, eating disorder, all that, that is absolutely horrible. I honestly think he needs to step away from the YouTubes and get him some actual help, get him some time to like mature and like age a little bit like a nice fine wine. Because going at it the way he's going at it right now is not working. And if he does really have a mental disorder, if you don't take time to yourself, it's not gonna get any better. I'm sorry, this has been like really rambly. I had like points set out and I'm like, this will be such a great conclusive video, but it's like not so much. I really just kind of wanted to throw my whole thing there and being like, just, oh my goodness, like with the whole younger generation of influencers, it's like you guys don't seem to understand when too much is too much. You need to stop bringing every single aspect of your life in onto the YouTubes. I understand you're a celebrity and people want to know things and people do know things and you're in the spotlight, but it's like, leave some things for yourself. And I really do hope and feel that he does need to take time out and away from this, just out of social media, because it's just so toxic at times, in order to just focus on himself and his needs and his mental health. Because like I said, if you don't deal with it, if you aren't actively trying to work with it instead of using it as a crutch or as an excuse, it's not going to get any better. It's just going to get worse. So I apologize for how like totally rambly this was. It's just kind of like me throwing my whatevers out there. Definitely let me know what you think down below. This is kind of just more like a PSA for like mental health and awareness and stuff like that. So definitely let me know what you think down below in the comments, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. And as always, keep it real. Mwah. And just a little bit thing on the end, if any of you guys do have either depression, anxiety, or any kind of mental illness that you are battling, feel free to talk to me. If you don't want to talk to me, go talk to someone else. There are a lot of hotlines. There are a lot of tools to help people who are in need. Don't feel like you are struggling alone. Please seek help. You are loved. And like I said, you are not alone. And I love you guys so much.